Did it give you the, you can click it to agree?
I think we're good there.
Beautiful. Okay, well, Dr. Al Agnew, it is fantastic that you've taken some time out of your very busy schedule to let me interview you, and then I'll return the favor at the end. How are you
Sounds
doing
good.
today?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. It's 2024 already, huh?
Oh my gosh. It's no longer the past or the present. It's now the future. All right. So the way we're going to do this, I have sent you a few questions already, so you're prepared for some of those. But then after you answer those, we're going to put you on the hot seat with some more questions, and then we'll finish with a little lightning round action.
Sounds good.
So why don't we start with following? So you were chair for, was it 5 years?
Yes.
What surprised you the most about being chair?
Well, so I mean, none of us go through a PhD in mathematics to become an administrator, right? I mean, it kind of goes without saying. So I mean, on the other hand, we care very much about our department, and that's why we develop a lot of opinions over time. And so, we're happy to do the job, but what I was surprised about is how interesting it ended up being. So I was prepared. Okay, I'm going to take care of the department. I'm going to do a lot of stuff, that's important, but probably not what I would, choose in a vacuum to be doing. But it turned out that there is so much going on, and it's very interesting. How the big machine works is very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of similarities with mathematics. For example, I found there's a lot of unsolved problems and many unsolvable problems.
Wait, what?
So yeah, so I found it very interesting, and it kind of sucks you in. All of a sudden, you start trying, kind of attacking these things as you would maybe tackling a new subject that you need for your research or something. It's super fast paced. That surprised me. I kind of figured, well, it's a big ungainly machine. It's not going to move very fast, but things are happening kind of all the time, and there's a lot that comes up, that you're not given any advance notice about. And there's something very exciting and satisfying about the kind of problem solving involved and that fast paced nature. So it gets a bit addicting.
You get a little adrenaline rush.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, what were some of your proudest accomplishments while being chair?
A lot of great things happened during those 5 years. I mean, not obviously necessarily because of me, but the AMS award obviously has got to be up there. That I think one of 20 institutions in the nation have
You're talking about this guy here, right?
That's exactly right. Programs that make a difference, and Bogdan led the charge on that, and we just had so much for him to put forward, and that's because of all the great work we do across the whole faculty and student body. Really proud of the new hires. We did a lot of new hiring, and we got great faculty. Something I was probably more directly involved in was the philanthropic efforts. I think we really ratcheted that up, and also that in conjunction with alumni outreach, which Armando and his group has done a great job with. But those were a couple things that I probably pushed a little bit more based on my position as chair. Always very, very happy with how the faculty promotions went. I think we batted 100%, and that's pretty great. We developed the faculty, we retained a lot of faculty. Very, very proud of that. We also, there were many individual student and faculty awards. There was the research award that Bogdan got, top researcher on campus, the outstanding professor, distinguished faculty member Sherry, outstanding professor that's campus wide, that was Sam. I mean, a ton. So although those are individual awards, I feel proud of it too, though, because it suggests that I had a hand in providing an environment for everyone to thrive. And that's was always super important to me. In fact, I view that as the whole point of the chair position, provide an environment for everyone to thrive. And I think all of those things I mentioned indicate that I was successful.
Wow, it's amazing how different our philosophies are. I just don't even care what people do. It really has been, I mean, amazing 5 years with you at the helm. Obviously some things have been built up over a long period of time,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
like there was a noticeable acceleration when you came in, right? There was a marked increase in the second derivative, and yeah, it's really been. It feels like every month there's something new to celebrate in this department.
Yeah, you make a really good point, though. When I did take over, there was a lot of momentum in place. I can, because I was a student back in the 1990s here, and things like undergraduate research and extracurricular activity was very rare. But Stephen Good, obviously, he was fairly young faculty member there. Him and maybe Mario Martelli is the other one that comes to mind. I mean, those two are pretty much the only one doing it, but they were really pushing it and trying to create a culture. And when I came back in 2001, very much that was still something that was being pushed and grown. And part of my bringing me on board was to do that, because I had a lot of experience on the student side of that. So yeah, in many ways I feel like I absolutely stood on the shoulders of giants and was able to kind of push that giant boulder over the top of the hill and getting it rolling downhill. I didn't have to do a lot of getting the boulder up the tough side of the hill. So that's what happens, though. If you can have consistent leadership with good focused goals, this is what can happen. And then everybody comes in and does their 5 years or whatever, gives it all they got, and we end up with a great department.
You're setting a high bar for me.
Well, that's why we voted you in, buddy, because we needed someone that can jump that high.
So, as amazing as everything has been, going forward, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the department?
Yeah, no doubt. The reality is we're not a monolith. We're part of a college, which is part of a campus, which is part of a system. And so we operate under a massive number of constraints, policy wise, financially, so on and so forth. So we don't have the ability to kind of just operate any way we want to. And so challenges will always be there because of that. If we had an unlimited budget and free reign to run things however we wanted to, then yeah, there wouldn't be too many challenges probably left. But that's not the case. With the stroke of a pen, things that we normally do can disappear. So there's always going to be challenges. I'm sorry to say that to you going into your first year, you'll probably have a ton. I mean, when I started as chair, I certainly wasn't told, oh, by the way, in your second year there'll be a pandemic. And you'll and you'll need to find a way to cut a third of your budget because we're planning on financial Armageddon and all this kind of thing. So who knows what's going to be your version of those things? The world is full of curveballs, and we just have to be up to it. Going forward, since the pandemic, speaking of the pandemic, not only academia but the whole world has been in a phase of accelerated change. Things were changing prior to that as well, but boy, we really just got thrust forward like 10, 20 years into the future. And the profession has changed a lot because of that. I mean, the expectations of professors, what administration expects, what students expect, and what the public expects. It's all, there's a lot more focus. There's a lot more differing opinions. So each of us being willing and able to evolve alongside this accelerated change while still enjoying the profession we thought we were getting into, it's been tricky, and it's going to continue to be tricky. So I think to be successful and happy, we have to navigate that as a group and be willing to change and evolve, because I think anybody who's going to be scratching and clawing to stay in the past is just going to get run over by progress. So that's going to be a very tricky one, because just, you put so much effort into getting into a profession like this, and then just to have the game change on you halfway through can be pretty, it could be, disappointing. It could also just be stressful. However, we just have to remember that, when things change, there's opportunities, and so as long as you're willing to get in there, get your hands dirty, and turn that change into something that you can get behind, then that's fine. There's a couple other things I've been thinking of. There is this rhetoric that's been thrown around, getting away from mathematics and towards quantitative reasoning, right? So when people start changing language, like from math to quantitative reasoning, you can guess that there's some sort of coming change that they're going to try to make, maybe some efforts to usurp territory. So I think certainly the math department on our campus needs to be very aware of that, and needs to, get ahead of that, and not just to protect territory, right? As academic departments, we're always trying to protect our territory because that translates to resources. We need to deserve it. We need to continually earn it. So we need to prove to the campus, continue to prove that we are the department where quantitative reasoning resides. You know what I mean? So we need to be the QR experts. We need to be willing and able to teach all students what their home department wants them to know. Otherwise, we will lose some ground to other colleges and our other departments. So are we willing to do that? That's going to be interesting. Much of our resources and our ability to thrive comes from our large FTES, right? So it comes from the large number of students in our classrooms, because we do so much GE, we do so much service courses for these other departments and colleges. That's why it's important to hang on to that, because that gives us the resources to have a good major and minor and graduate program in our department. And it also helps us, get resources so that we can make sure our research production is still good.
For those of you who might be listening, Dr. Agnew talked about FTES, which is somehow a calculation they do to determine how many students you're actually teaching. And to give you some idea, like how they use that, the colleges are all told you need at the college level to have a certain number of FTES, and then the college will send that down to the department. So you need to have this amount of FTES, and I guess they use historical information to try to make predictions about what you should be able to sustain. And I'll say right now, it's a very good thing that our faculty give 110%, because that's where we are for our FTES right now, is 110%.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you look at the number of non-math majors, even non-STEM majors that we teach, I mean, almost all of the students go through math classes, on campus. So that makes us really important. We have a massive footprint, and that puts us in a very good position, politically.
So with all these challenges coming, then what advice would you give to someone, I don't know, like me, who's trying to follow in your rather large footsteps?
Wow. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of things I could probably say here, probably because there is just so much to the job. So we talked about, making sure we stay relevant, making sure we evolve along with, service department needs, so that we can be willing and able to educate their students so that, you know, they can go back to their home departments with what they need. You know, obviously technology, staying on top of technology, so that happens. You know, looking at FTS, that kind of stuff. So there's all this stuff we've already talked about that is a full-time job in and of itself and takes a tremendous amount of, you know, planning and execution. But there's so much more to the job. A lot of stuff there, you know, and there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of you know, things you can't control, and there's a lot of, you know, managing people and personalities, because, you know, not only does the chair need to think about the big picture, but you're also going to have students and faculty coming into your office fairly regularly with problems that need to be solved. And you know, sometimes that can get fairly complicated, and you might spend a lot of time reading policy and CBAs and student conduct, and you know, so you do so many things. That's part of what I said earlier in answering the question, that it's really kind of an exciting position too, because you're just doing a bunch of things pretty quickly, and quite often extemporaneously. So with all that in mind, I would say, you know, you'll need to adopt a much more pragmatic mindset than you'd ever imagined yourself doing while you're sitting there, you know, teaching classes 2 days a week and grading, and you know, you're going to need to be more pragmatic. You'll need to get comfortable that I know I wasn't, and I imagine I'm probably not too different than most mathematicians. You know, you want to construct a proof, and then you're going to refine it, make it neat and perfect, and you know, you just don't have the time to do that, you know, with kind of real world messy problems that are on a, you know, short timeline. You have to be quite pragmatic, and that took me a while to get comfortable with. I'm not sure I ever completely got comfortable with it, but you know, just the fast-paced nature of everything, I didn't have a choice. So be prepared for that. You know, you'll get some emotionally charged communications coming your way at times that you're not prepared for. So you know, always take 3 deep breaths before reacting or responding to anything. You know, just you count to 10, whatever. You know, because again, you're not always prepared for when these things happen. So you know, just putting up that nice sort of temporal barrier so that you can kind of nod and breathe and say, okay, I've thought of, you know, sort of the professional, correct way to respond that doesn't, you know, make me commit to anything I might regret later. That's a, you know, again, we don't always have to worry about this stuff as faculty members. Being a faculty member is so different. You know, so we have to develop a lot of new kind of interpersonal skills. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't wear yourself out. That will happen all on its own. So you know, there were times when, you know, I'm like, I want to get these 3 things done this year, these 3 large things done this year. And, you know, I maybe got 2 done, and I might have been able to force the 3rd, but thought better of it and did it the following year. You know, things like that. I think thinking like that's probably good. I think better results. You know, don't try to force things. You know, a lot of times, you know, certain projects or certain changes have their time. You probably a greatest way to sort of illustrate that is with the curriculum changes, right? I mean, I think you had most of the logistics down for that probably in 2015, if not before. But you know, by the time the department and the university and everything was ready for it, you know, it was several years later. But it was a success, and that's all that matters. Let's see. Don't waste time, spirit, or political capital getting hung up on lost causes. You may lose more battles than you win. That's okay, right? So statistically, you just need a lot more battles if you want more wins. Because there are so many limitations. So this goes back to the fact that, you know, we don't function autonomously from the university, you know, and there's so much structure and so much policy and so much work going on. So a lot of times people, you know, maybe at the administrative level, it will feel like they're almost looking for an excuse to kill your idea. You know, maybe because they're just overwhelmed, right? They just can't afford to be part of yet another change effort. So I think it's important, when something is at least temporarily a lost cause, let it go and focus on something else, because it's always better, to actually be able to accomplish some things than to be perpetually trying to fight for something to happen. Now, I'm not saying give up completely, but maybe you just have to reprioritize and again, wait for the timing to work out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Keep us the department everyone wants to go to for help and collaboration. I think that's important. This is something that was really important to me as chair, and I really do feel I was successful in doing this. It got to the point to where other departments in other colleges even, kind of would come to us for things that might not exactly been our job or our responsibility, but we were just good at solving those problems for them or providing them that information, so they kept coming back. And on one hand, that increases our workload, but I found that it absolutely, our standing on the campus went up tremendously, and then people would start looking to us when they wanted, and people would start emulating us, for example. When we hired our staff, we have a full staff, absolutely wonderful. And that was a big part of that. Renee and I wanted, it was very important to us. We wanted people who were going to be willing to go the extra mile, looking to do things that, maybe they didn't have to technically do, but they were willing to do it because they just wanted to solve problems for people. And I think that's been super successful. That involves doing a lot of annoying little things with a smile, so while we're all kind of overworked and we're looking to push work away, to be that department that everyone kind of looks up to and therefore supports when we want something, right? That's when we get to cash that in. It means, not letting that little stuff bother us, just doing it, do it with a smile, and then all the good stuff starts coming back, being a good campus citizen. I think that's really important. And then the other thing I kind of mentioned already is the main purpose of your existence, Adam, as chair, is to provide an environment for everyone else to thrive. But I that's your personality, so I don't need to tell you that. But it's always worth reminding ourselves that, particularly, when things get messy. Last thing, something I've told you many, many times, and I think you've told me as well, is hiring and personnel administratively are the most important things we do. If we hire the right people and we make sure their personnel process goes appropriately, then, having great people, then being successful is a corollary.
Yeah, that when I was first hired here, when Stephen Good told me the most important thing we do is hiring.
Yep.
And because of that, he used to say, after, they figured that out after they hired me. And because of the template he set down, and we've been following it, hiring the right kind of people who get what we're trying to do in this department, who are more about action than they are about words. And man, that's why everybody's getting tenure when they go up, right? Like, why everybody gets all their promotions is we're just hiring people who are winners, and they're helping bring out the best in our students. And it's just, it's phenomenal. And the job you and Renee did hiring office staff, well, it's just incredible. Yeah, it's if we could give them tenure,
Totally. Yeah. No, that worked out amazingly. That group is just phenomenal.
So what are you going to miss most?
The absence of grading. I want to say just kidding, but it's probably a little bit of truth. Seriously though, the thing I'm going to miss the most is probably the relationship with the staff and the day-to-day interactions with them. They're such great people, and it's when you have good people around you supporting you and supporting what you're trying to do, it's just amazing how much leverage that gives you. You know what I mean? It's, I could go to any one of our staff, and say, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this, can you take it from here? Give them some, basic idea of what I'm getting at, and or here's a mundane task, but it's super, super important. Yeah, no problem. It just extends, again, provides that leverage to be able to get things done for people and for the department. And that's pretty exciting, just to see like the physics of how, power can multiply with staff, and execution. So that's something I'm going to be able to miss, because when you're a faculty member, it's a solitary occupation for the most part. Certainly for me, you kind of, everything you do kind of begins and ends with you. So you're not really leveraging sort of people in that way. So I'll miss that for sure. Also the gratitude, the trust, the support, and the visits from the faculty. That's really awesome. Faculty drops by and says, hey, you're doing a great job, or thanks for doing that, or whatever, this is all fantastic. That can be, sometimes that may, someone might drop in like that right after maybe a really challenging meeting of another sort, and that can really sort of put the wind back under your wings. And, so that, being in that position to have those kind of interactions with the faculty, I'm going to miss that, because again, being a regular faculty member, and I'm not a particularly social guy, so I do a lot of my work in solitude, and so it'll probably take some time to adapt back to that existence.
You're gonna have to start hanging out more with some of the younger faculty. You'll
exactly. That
I
is
used to think of
probably
myself as being part of that younger faculty, and then somebody, oh, that's right, you reminded me I'm not so young anymore.
That's right.
All right, so those were the easy questions. Are you ready to get onto the hot seat?
Fire the fastballs. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. First, without naming names, what was the strangest thing you saw as chair?
The strangest thing I saw
Strangest thing as chair.
Oh,
strangest, weirdest. Yeah.
Oh, that is a tough one. Let's see. Strangest thing I saw as chair. I gotta have seen some stranger things than the things that are coming up into my mind. Darn, I can't come up with anything appropriately fun. I would probably have better answers if I were chair of one of the lab departments. Because I'd be sitting in the chairs meetings, or I'll be on these text groups and stuff like that, and strange things would happen. Like, oh, the power's out and we have these refrigerators, or oh, the birds got out, or the plants are doing something strange, and but for math, nothing really that strange. Yeah, so I think mostly just sitting back and thanking my lucky stars in those meetings that I'm not in a laboratory.
This is going to surprise some people. That, I mean, mathematicians do have a reputation as being a little strange, and so in the mecca of mathematics, there's nothing strange going on. Or maybe the problem is, to us, what is really strange to everybody else is just normal.
Well, I don't know if this counts as strange, but and it certainly doesn't make for a super interesting story. But like, for example, it took me like 3 years to fix Tommy's chalkboard. Why?
Oh my gosh, that's
why?
right.
You know what I mean? It's like got to be one of the simplest problems I've faced as a chair.
Yeah, it just wouldn't like sit straight on the wall, right? Like it would, you push on it and it would bend in, bow in and out, right?
And it was kind of wiggly, and then they so we kept calling, you know, the folks back who do this, and so they'd take it off and put it somewhere else, and then there was big holes in the wall, so it was sort of snowballing. It was, you know, into new problems. So like certain things like that where you just kind of shake your head going, yeah, the gods don't want this done.
Actually, you can blame that all on me, because I'm, you know, when I got here, I put up a chalkboard, right?
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I think I was the only person with a chalkboard in their office.
Uh-huh.
And when Tommy got here a couple of years later, he saw that. He goes, "I need to have a chalkboard," and that's where the problem began.
Well, you know, I think I'm missing the obvious answer to your question. I think maybe I have it is, yeah, a pandemic. That was a
All
strange thing
right.
that happened. Yeah, there's this pandemic thing, these little viruses, and, you know, shutting down the school for a week and then opening it back up 100% online, you know, after 1 week of training. That, of course, by far was the strangest. And, you know, I mean, that was like some, you know, horror flick out of the 1960s or something. You know, just in terms of, you know, they show the scientists back in those movies, you know, with the, you know, horn rim glasses and stuff, trying to figure out how to, you know, keep the alien asteroid from hitting Earth or something. You know, so it's funny because it kind of just felt like that, like, whoa, here's some very bizarre, strange, you know, kind of sciencey thing affecting the planet. And how are we going to maintain normalcy? That was totally the strangest thing, certainly, that happened.
I'll have to add to that, which is the people who, when we moved to online learning, I would
Yeah.
have expected to maybe drag their feet the most would
Mhm.
be the faculty near retirement age.
Yeah.
And quite the contrary. I remember you organized a session where we, you know, the faculty could all show up and we would kind of discuss like, oh, what are our ideas for how to make this work? This is before they wouldn't even let us on campus anymore. And it was some of the older faculty who were like, oh, no, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do this, you know. I was like, oh my god, that is really strange here. Like, they're the youngins are the ones going and saying, how are we going to do this? You got Harriet Edwards going, no, let me show you exactly how we're going to do this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. But, you know, I guess that's one thing. If you know, if you've been around a while, you've probably experienced some unusual things like that, and you maybe learn how to adapt to it. But, and you know, you know, I think the people we got here, in particular, were mathematicians. We love a curveball. We love a challenge. You know,
Right.
But that's funny that you mentioned that, though, right? The people you figure would be the lowest tech, not necessarily.
All right, second question. What is the worst idea I ever brought to you as vice chair?
Worst idea you've ever. Let's see. Um,
It's a trick question. I don't have any bad ideas.
you know, that's almost true. That's almost true. And some of them that I thought originally were bad, and then, you know, you have this effect on people. I don't think it's just me. I think other people would back me on this. That, you know, some ideas you mention them, and it's like, boy, he is crazy. What is he thinking? And then all of a sudden, after, like, you know, a couple days of it just sitting in your subconscious, like, wait, well, hang on, there's something to that. um,
That's something, by the way, I always loved about working with you is like some people, they have an immediate reaction, and that's the way they're going to think about it for the rest of their lives. But you'd come back to me 2 days later and you'd say, no, I thought about this. And yeah, actually, I see some merit. Like, wow,
yeah,
that's so great.
yeah, you know, I things kind of, I have this place in my brain where things, you know, just sort of mull over whether I want them to or not. So it keeps me honest.
All
And,
right.
you know,
Well,
let's face it, my whole life I've liked sort of off the wall ideas, right? I mean, that's been my shtick. So I kind of like it. You know, I do think that and maybe this is one we still have to see. So the idea that we could group together incoming math majors, whether they're at the pre-calculus level or Calc 1 level, whether we can get away with training them at the same time. Basically, just letting them kind of not skip pre-calc, but do it on an as-needed basis.
Yeah.
That was one I didn't think had much chance of being successful. But then again, when I saw how you wanted to execute it, that we had people that, that if put in a position of being in charge of that, they would be able to make it work. Like, I don't think I could make that work if I were in the classroom doing that, just, the way my style and the way I think and my skill set. But again, I think a big part of it was putting the right people in that could do that. And I can tell you, as a chair, I haven't received any complaints about that or any kickback from other departments. So that's a real good sign. I still would love to see some statistics to see, are we doing better, the same, or worse? I mean, even if we're doing the same, that's a win, because it's taking a semester off of those people's, math path. So yeah, that would be one that I thought was pretty darn crazy.
All right. Next one is going to get you in trouble. I just warn you right now.
It's
Okay?
just going to happen.
Big trouble. So you had to do every year a lot of classroom observations.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Right. So like every spring you do 5, 10, 20, I don't know, lots and lots of these things.
Sure.
Who gave the best lectures?
Who gave the best lectures? Interesting.
I told you you'd get in trouble for this.
Yeah. Well, let me say that. So I've been chair for 5 years, so I'm no dummy. So let me start off by saying that, boy, wonderful faculty giving great lectures. That's a hard question. Okay, now let's get to the dirt. No, actually, that is very true, obviously, and that comes from the hiring and all of that. Best lectures, and there's a lot of people like a lot of people that I don't visit because they're already full professors. So it does cut it down. It does cut it down to faculty, either associate professors or assistant professors. So
right.
Keep that
still in that process here. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have a lot of really stellar lecture, full professors that give great lectures. But I would have to say, people that kind of blew my mind were people like Sherry, Sunny, Allie, Bridget come to mind. They, in particular, I did a lot of these observations virtually. So for example, when we were teaching online, when we're still not allowed to come on campus, and a lot of people were still struggling with that. Say fall 2020. And I sympathized. I was, it's like, better them than me. I'd rather be evaluating than teaching in fall 2020. So it was a challenge, don't get me wrong. But boy, how people like that, Kristen, if I didn't already mention Kristen, I mean, they were just blowing my mind how they were able to engage and keep things fast paced and keep things relevant. Because that's, I think, the biggest difficulty. I did teach a class in spring 2020, so I do have some experience with that. Super hard to keep students engaged. We talk about student engagement all the time in the in-person classroom, but it's a completely different animal online. And they had so many tricks up their sleeves. Students were engaged and they were enjoying it. And that was not always what I saw. More traditional type teaching methods, even when done well, you can't control the student's attention span. Well, you can, obviously, some of those people I mentioned did, but it's a bigger challenge to do so, is what I meant. Yeah. So yeah, those people were quite amazing. In the in-classroom, I recall Nick Brubaker being fantastic. Bashara gave very elegant lectures. People like Tommy and Matt, I recall mostly in person for those guys, doing just a splendid job, physically keeping their students moving. Like in Tommy's class, students are running up to this board, doing that one, then down for a real, technical 15-minute lecture, then boom, back up onto the boards. So seeing, and that's one thing that I'm going to miss about being chair, is now I'm going to get thrown into that kind of competition. there's some really, really really good lecturing going on out there. And I'm sure there's people I'm missing too. We have a big department, but I for time's sake, I will cut it off there.
I love the way you diplomatically got around who gave the best and just listed everybody. That's amazing.
That's right.
You are
I'm
the
telling you,
master.
on 5 years, I learned my politics.
All right. Fourth question. What was your biggest failure as chair?
Biggest failure as chair. Let's see.
And don't say hiring the VC. Okay. The vice chair
Yeah.
was not.
Well, I was trying to think of a way to phrase that. You know, I think I would have liked to have done more organizationally. You know, and quite honestly, it's just not a strong suit of mine. I would have liked to set things up a little bit more so that, for example, when you come along, you know, we have systems that are in place, like things like the budget and financial stuff. But as we've talked before, there is no real budget. That's just a thing people talk about, but we don't have any budget in any appropriate sense of the word. You know, so getting all that kind of cleaned up. I mean, I think I understand why it wasn't cleaned up when I came in, because there were people before me that certainly were probably more organized than me, and obviously they weren't able to do it. Yeah, I think those sorts of things. You know, I'm pretty happy with everything I did in terms of projects and the way I handled kind of the money and allowing people to travel and have graders and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I left the chair position more streamlined and organized than when I left it. I don't think it's any worse. But I definitely had more plans for that. I certainly had more plans for that. Yeah, that's what I'd have to say there.
Right.
But you know what? That is right up your alley, right? So I think, again, the whole what was going on is the gods were saying, dude, don't bother. Adam's coming in and he is Mr. Streamline in organization.
We have already been redoing the Dropbox. I converted the department meeting agenda into LaTeX. Oh, it's going to happen. Poor Renee's going to learn LaTeX.
Cal State Fullerton Department of Mathematics, a LaTeX department.
That's right.
Copyrighted.
Like all right, last hot seat question before we get to the lightning round.
Sure.
Would you have rather won the Fields Medal for math, the Nobel Prize for physics,
oh dear,
or a Grammy for your music? Which, by the way, for people who don't know, Dr. Agnew here is a tremendous musician. When I was cleaning out your office, I found the record for Professor and the Madman, the Seance album. Oh my gosh, I was so jealous. All the girls were in there like, oh my gosh, we didn't know we had that in here. I was like, why wasn't you should have had these as Christmas presents.
Oh, that's right. I forgot I had one in there. Boy, that is by far the hardest question. Wow. Kudos to you for manufacturing that one. Wow. And all three isn't an acceptable answer.
You can't. This is not like the best lecturer. You can't. Well, they're all wonderful awards.
So all three of those things are so incredibly important to me, and I'll do them all as long as I'm walking on this planet. But maybe what'll help me decide between it is, I imagine I will retire one day from campus, but I won't ever retire from music, so I'll take the Grammy.
Oh, look at that.
I think there's more road ahead for me in that part of my role. So if I were an assistant professor, you know, then Fields Medal, right? Or even Nobel, flip the coin. Yeah. But I think at this point where I'm sitting, 54 years old. I Grammy. Yeah.
All
And
right.
then maybe Taylor Swift can, my buddy Taylor can get me into one of those football games and start
That's
hobnobbing
right.
with the
Hang out
important
with
people.
Travis Kelsey. All right. All right.
That's exactly right.
All right. So you're off the hot seat, but
Mm.
don't relax because now it's the lightning round.
Whew.
All
Okay.
right. So it's very important here. Don't think hard, just answer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Number one, algebra or analysis?
Analysis.
Okay. Number two, you get to watch a movie, The Big Lebowski or Oppenheimer?
Lebowski.
Nice. Number three, over the last 5 years, what did you miss more? Eating meat or lecturing?
Lecturing.
All right.
By a mile. It's a good
All
one.
right. Now you get to choose one here. Grading an exam question where nobody gets it right, but nobody leaves it blank, or completing administrative reports that nobody will ever read.
Oh, the first one for sure. Completing administrative reports where they're never going to be read. That's where souls go to die.
Okay. So now the last one.
Okay.
You've hired tremendous staff in the math department office. So who's better, Lauren or Gigi? No. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. No. No, the
I can
real
answer
one
that. It's Galoran or Ligi.
the real. Here's the real one. Laura or Sherry? No. Don't do that. No. Okay.
Laura.
Here it is. Real last question. What is the best department in the CSU system?
Oh, Cal State Fullerton math.
Oh my gosh.
Not even close. The biggest, the best, the baddest.
I'm so glad you got that one right.
Well, there's this anthropology department at Cal State Hayward. I wouldn't be allowed back on campus if I got that one wrong.
All right, you have survived the grilling interview questions. All right, so now I've heard you have some questions for me.
I do. I have to say, I don't have any lightning round questions that are nearly as clever as that, but I do have several questions I'd like to throw your way.
All right.
So, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, a couple months in, has anything surprised you about the job / role of chair?
Yeah. So why is it a couple months in? Let me start with that. So, right, like, you decided it would be good to let me transition into the job last semester.
Yes.
While I was still teaching. So this was really amazing.
That's exactly right. Figure if you could do two jobs, at once, well, then you probably could do the one, right?
That's right. Yeah, well, flippantly, like, I just had no idea how many emails you get a day asking, well, for lots of stuff, but even just evaluate this course, sign this document. Like, I must, I used to get about 100 emails a day. I'm probably getting twice that much now. And I can't tell me how many times I'm going into the AEM workflow and signing off on some document or going into Concur and, approving travel. So that was pretty surprising. But I think the thing that has really surprised me the most is, well, as a faculty member, I have always known how fantastic our staff was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize just how important they are to everything.
It's impossible to appreciate unless you're in that role.
Yeah.
It really is.
And, I didn't know, like, they come in and they are working from the moment they get here, and other than a lunch they take, they are just so productive. And every time I have a question, either they can answer it or they're telling me who I can go to get the answer.
Yep.
they've seen a lot, and it's something you mentioned earlier. We're problem solvers.
Yeah.
As mathematicians, that's what we do. We have hired some top of the line problem solvers in that
Absolutely.
office, and I don't think. Well, I mean, I know for sure I would not have gotten through those 2 months without all of them, and
Yeah.
they've just been absolutely incredible. So, and they were hired not under the easiest of circumstances, right?
No.
You
No.
know, we're in a pandemic. Oh, and then of course Renee is gone, and so there's nobody to train them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
But
pretty interesting. Yeah.
they are so hyper talented and so dedicated that they didn't necessarily get to the right answer immediately, but they came up with answers to get them through.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't just throw up their hands and say, it's impossible to do this job. They just, okay, well, here's what I can do. And then, I might come in and say, actually, this is actually technically the right way, but wow, you improvised a heck of a solution. you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know Gigi and Lauren, like what I noticed about them, we hired them very close to the same time, but they were within a couple months of each other. Just the teamwork there is, and when they go into the problem solving, the teamwork, because not too long after we hired them, Renee was gone.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Gigi was already wasn't hired until Renee was gone on leave. And so, yeah, a lot of times they'd come to me and say, "Oh, how do we do this?" And I'm like, I have no idea. So then they would just sort it out. They would work together a lot. They're almost like their brains are connected. And then with Aislinn, I mean, she was there before, before Gigi and Lauren. But the thing that always impressed me about Aislinn is, she's the one who kind of moved up into that Renee's seat when Renee was gone. And again, there were so many things she just wasn't trained on. But aside from being good problem solvers, what I noticed with Aislinn is she's fearless. She just boom, start calling people, doing stuff. It's like she didn't know how to do something. She would just start doing it and figure it out, figure her way out of things. And a lot of human beings aren't comfortable with that. If she wasn't so good at that, I don't know if we would have made it through without Renee for those months. It's remarkable.
Yeah. So that is I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was because of how highly I thought of them already, but that's just how good they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what aspect of the job are you most excited about at this point? Because there's still probably a lot you're going to be exposed to, still probably a lot that you haven't got tucked into, but what aspect are you most excited about thinking ahead?
Yeah, well, a lot of the organizational stuff actually is really interesting to me, as you correctly predicted. I really think teaching for all these years and hanging out with my students a lot, I hear the things that they complain about.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those things are stuff you're going to hear at any university forever and ever, right? And they're not things that we can, fix, or they're kind of silly stuff like, we have an escalator that goes to the 4th floor, and boy, wouldn't it be great if you could make it go to the 5th floor? And I'm like, well, okay.
Yep.
But some of the things that they want are, I think, reasonable. Like, we'd like more study spaces.
Yeah.
I think, geez, yeah, it would be nice. Or it'd be really great if there were upper division options for tutoring, right? And
Right.
which is traditionally very difficult to do in a department where you really don't have graduate students in the R1 model.
Yeah.
PhD students who are around all the time. Our graduate students mostly work during the day, so. So finding solutions to these kind of problems is what keeps me up at night, but in a good way. Like, I'm thinking about this, and it gives me hope because I have ideas, and I think there's some things we're going to be able to do. And much like the curriculum redesign, which of course, in one sense, we kind of got over the hump and it's done, but of course it's never done, right? We're going to be starting up again and doing more stuff. But you're right. Like, you kind of have to see the long term here, right? And not just, oh, it's not going to happen overnight. But I've grown to embrace the process, the evolution of the department.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward over these next 3.5 years to seeing that evolution so that I can leave this department a little better than when I found it, with
Sure.
some things in place that, again, they won't be done overnight, but we're going to get them done.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there a couple specific main goals for your first year or two?
So, I mean, the primary goal goes back to kind of what you said, don't mess it up. I have a long list of ideas.
Yeah.
And I've brought on a tremendous vice chair, Jessica James from Stats, who is going to help me make a tier list of these ideas. And so that's actually the first goal, is let's figure out, what the order is going to be. But the primary directive, right, is you can't mess up anything, because you've got this place running, on rails at this point. So a lot of the first year is, I think, going to be trying to do stuff under the hood, get stuff, just, greased up. I'm replacing all the surge protectors in the office. Yeah. Hasn't been done since 2001. So,
Oh my God.
nobody's going to notice that I have done this, right? But
Right.
we're going to do some of these little things. But a couple of the bigger goals for this year, I very much want to build a student advisory board. So, as you know, of course, the chair has an advisory board of faculty that go across the concentrations. And since I've been teaching for all these years, I have a lot of connections with students. But as I'm in this office for longer, I realize I won't have those connections with students in the same way. And so I want to try to find some ways of bridging that gap. And one of them is I'd like to build an advisory board of students, again, cross concentration, and maybe even sort of cross their classification, right? So juniors and seniors and freshmen, et cetera, so that I get a good sense of, and transfer students, right? Like, what are the issues that our students are actually facing? Certainly other faculty are going to tell me stuff, but I want to see it for myself, and I want the students to tell me about it.
And would you also, so would these all be math majors, or would you also be looking for like service course / GE course input as well?
I haven't thought much about it. It's an interesting question. I haven't thought about having somebody from a service course. I'd start with the majors, since they're the most accessible to me. I'll have faculty who can recommend students to me if I don't already know some. But it might not actually be a bad idea to have somebody who can say, hey, what's going on in college algebra.
Sure.
So yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, no, I like that idea very much. Let's see. What do you think you'll miss most about not being a regular faculty?
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah, it's 100%. It's my interactions with the students.
Yeah.
I love. I mean, that evolution I was talking about. I love watching that every semester, because I see that arc with the students. I traditionally get very good class attendance and good office hour attendance, so I'm with my students a lot. And in those first several weeks of a semester, they're coming to office hours, and I'm never sitting. I'm running around answering questions all over the place. But by the end of that semester, I'm there, but they don't need me. They're working with each other. They figured out how to learn from reading the book or reading papers or whatever.
Right.
And so I get to kind of sit back and watch, and the interactions become, more social than they even are as mathematical anymore. And in the last couple of weeks of the last semester, realizing it would be a while before that, oh my goodness, was I getting emotional about it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I'm so proud, right, when I get to see these students who they know, because I tell them, like, this is going to be the hardest math class you ever take, right? Like, not only do I just teach hard math classes, but I'm a really hard teacher. And I set the bar very high, and they don't disappoint me. They get over that bar, and that's a really impressive thing to see. And it's
Right.
why I come to work every day. It's just amazing. I'm just so excited every time. So I'm gonna miss that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll need to like experience that vicariously through other faculty.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed that one. I would have to say that was missed almost immediately, and it's a thing I'm looking really forward to getting back to. So yeah, I wish I could say, oh no, you won't really notice it. No, you are going to notice it.
I've been texting my students over our Discord page still, like even just
Ah,
last week, I'm texting them from last semester. Hey, I got my new office. Come on in and get some candy.
right on, right on. Okay, so how about some hot seat type questions?
Oh, let's do it. Oh, wow. Wow. Did you turn up the heat in here? That's crazy. How did you do that?
I did. I have the whole office wired, don't you worry. Okay, so let's start with one with a little bit of heat on it. So how have you prepared your wife and family for this? Do they have any idea of what you're getting into?
Yeah. It was interesting for years. My kids kept asking me if I was going to be chair, and I always thought that was like they were wanting me to do it. And
Uh-huh.
and my wife would ask me if I was going to be chair, and it was very clear she didn't want me to do it. And then when this, let's just call it opportunity, happened, um, my wife was very happy.
Nice.
And I wondered why, but she says, well, I think now you're not going to be grading. I go, well, that's true. I'm not. She goes, so you can work like a more steady, 8 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever schedule. And sure, you're going to have, emergencies come up in the middle of the night once in a while, but you can kind of compartmentalize work and home a little bit more. Which, I mean, I'm certainly guilty, right? Like I worked 168-hour work week typically, right? Whereas my kids, they were like, promise us you're not going to take it. Like, you're not going to be the chair. I was like, wait, really? Like that you wanted me? No. Because in their mind, I think it was, you're going to not only be teaching now, you're going to be the chair. And I try to explain to them,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to be teaching anymore. And so the two younger one understood that, but then the oldest one, Alex, who's now Cal State Fullerton student, he was like, I think you're going to be great at chair, but I don't think you're going to like it. I think you're going to miss the classroom so much. And I said, well, yeah, we're going to find out, aren't we? But I think one of the saving graces in this job is that, yes, it is a very different position, and it is administrative work. There's no question about that. There's very little math that you get to do. But it is still about solving problems.
Yeah.
And that's been something already I've been excited about. Lauren and Gigi are trying to enroll Open University students, and they have made their own spreadsheet to try to keep track of things. And sometimes people have signed up for 8 different classes or something, right? And they need to see all of those at once. And I'm like, wait a second, I can do that. And I go into their spreadsheet and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a filter here that's going to automatically highlight all the people that match the name you put in.
Right.
All right. And I'm like, you know what? They couldn't do that, but I can.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's
there
right.
you go. I have some value. I have some use. That's all I want, is to be useful. So I think this, this job, I think the kids are going to see that, like, as long as I keep having problems to solve and I can utilize my unique talents
Sure.
in productive ways, then yeah, then I'm going to be pretty happy. That'll be okay.
Right on. Right on. Good. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Um, See, this is kind of half lightning round, half hot seat.
Okay.
So don't think too long on it. Department meetings, in person, online, or both?
Oh, wow. Ah, yeah, yep, yep. So, oh, wow. That is a mean question. Yeah. You're going to get me in
Yeah,
trouble now.
that's a scorpion pepper level one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I obviously have a preference.
I knew that, and that prompted the
Yeah.
question.
So, yeah, so for those of you who don't know, we used to have all of our department meetings in person, 100%, and then over the pandemic, they became all online department meetings. And once we were allowed back into school, we gave a hybrid option. So you can show up in person or you can do it online. Of course, because we wanted to allow people to do it online, we moved to a room that was more appropriate for that. We had all the technology set up, but that's a necessarily smaller room, meaning even if everybody wanted to show up, there wouldn't be enough room. So we've boxed ourselves into a bit of a corner here.
It's
Yeah.
true.
I absolutely think that showing up in person is by far much better. It's great to see people in person. We can actually have kind of side conversations either before, after, or occasionally even during the meeting, and that's really yeah, that can actually be very productive and or fun. Uh, Certainly, giving people the option to do it remotely helps some people in their personal lives. Uh, and uh, and so because of the room situation and because I think people have just grown accustomed to it, I don't think we're switching it anytime soon. Even if I would like to see it go back, but well, I guess one of the things I told you for many years that's irrelevant here is, well, there's what I want, but it's not all about me. So
Fair
oh,
enough. Fair enough.
oh man, that's a rough one. Yep.
So CNET's going to be smooth sailing from here on in. Okay, let's see. How do you intend to use the vice chair role? And will you rotate vice chairs or stick to one?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So, um, I first and foremost, I'm trying to pick somebody who is going to put a leash on me.
So
I have
they're going to
a
be a handler.
That's right. I have a lot of ideas, and some of them are good occasionally, and some of them we don't need to talk about those. So it's very good to have somebody who can come in and tell me, yeah, let's set that to the side. That's not a good one. But also somebody who is going to be not only as organized as me, but even more organized as me. Because even I will struggle sometimes, right, when there's just too much on my plate. And so that's why I chose Jessica Janes because I mean she's just phenomenal in every way that you could hope for. I uh, I actually would like her to stay on. Now, of course, she does all this grant work. She is very productive when it comes to scholarly and creative activities, on top of being an incredible instructor and in providing tremendous service to the department. But she's a tremendous researcher, and so at some point she might say, it's just too much to do both. But honestly, I'd like to keep her around for the whole time because, frankly, I'd like to kind of groom her to be the successor to this position. right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm hoping in a few years I can be interviewing her as she's taking over the, the job. I think she, I mean, just absolutely has the temperament for it, has the skill set. I mean, everything is there. Uh,
Absolutely.
and and I've been at several universities, and I think one of the things I liked seeing more was having the chair being a position that will rotate,
Hmm.
and the chair using like has a vice chair who they can sort of prepare to become the chair. And I mean, some people in the department have told me, well, no, it's really nice to have some sort of certainty. We want you to serve 2, 3, 4 terms, right, as chair.
Right.
And and I'm not saying that I'm not, I wouldn't ever think about running for a second term, but I think you can get some of that certainty, at least to a certain extent, if you've prepared the next person and people kind of know who it's going to be. Uh, so I'm hopeful that I don't have to replace Jessica as vice chair.
Yeah, because that's always a tricky thing, right? I mean, you can look at both sides of it. I mean, the longer you have that person around, then they become more effective for you. You establish that rapport, that relationship, and let's face it, administrative projects and things, they don't neatly fit in an academic year.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's you could reasonably say, well, if I'm going to be here 3 years, for example, then that's 3 people I could sort of train for a year, and that sort of provides a little bit more redundancy and spreads the leadership around. It's not an obvious sort of answer. You could argue that both ways, but yeah, I've certainly with mine, as I found that it was just easier to have that consistency. And so yeah, interesting you're seeing it the same way.
Well, I mean, and you had to do that one semester when Kevin Nichols was vice chair, and I mean that was just a disaster, as we all know. So
he's got to see this.
yeah. Hi, Kevin. Yeah. No, I think one way to kind of capture some of what you're thinking about with having a rotating position is the advisory board.
Yeah.
So, advisory board, we got, including Jessica, we have 5 people on it, and
That's right.
they're not going to see all of, or even close to all of the minutia of being chair, but they're at least going to see some of the behind the scenes stuff, how we make
Yeah.
some of the hot dogs anyway.
That's right.
And yeah, I think, I probably learned quite a bit by being on the advisory board.
Yeah.
Obviously you trained me a lot of stuff as vice chair, but just on the advisory board, I saw
For
quite
sure.
a bit.
Yep. Absolutely. That's an excellent point. Okay, so let's see. Last hot seat question is, so how much tenure track hiring would you like to see during your time, considering that? So what makes this a tricky question is that considering we have relatively limited upper division grad offerings versus our wealth of like GE and service course offerings, right? So how do you see that balance happening? And how does that inform your decision to hire or not hire?
Yeah, this is always, I mean, the simple answer is if we get the opportunity to hire, we should be doing it. There is always a need. Even this semester, one of our faculty members is having to take care of family, and we had to immediately put somebody into their upper division course. Those sort of things are going to happen, right? And depending on how the musical chairs of courses plays out, you might end up having some upper division courses where you really don't have a full-time faculty member to staff it. So that could be problematic. Of course, we have graduate courses for 3 different graduate programs, and hiring people who can cover in those is really important. For whatever reason, we seem to be on a schedule where all of the people who go on sabbatical every year seem to come from one concentration.
I know. What's with that?
So, having an extra person or two in each concentration definitely mitigates that a bit.
No doubt.
Uh, but I mean, I think philosophically it's important to keep hiring because the people we hire, obviously there's a culture that we want to bring them into. We want to mentor them into that culture. We want to see them grow into the kind of professors that we've historically had here. On the other hand, the people we hire are I mean, to me, they're the lifeblood of the department. They're the
Yeah.
ones they bring. I mean, every year it seems like the people who we hire have stronger and stronger backgrounds than
Yeah.
the previous ones. When I did in 2019 the peer search, I couldn't believe the kind of CVs. I'm like, thank goodness I'm not trying to get a job right now. I wouldn't get hired.
Yeah.
And so I think people who your Rileys and Kristens and Stephanies and shows, right, who we're bringing in, and don't forget Amelia, of course, right, and recently Mateus, right, like they're bringing in these new ideas and they're just ready to go, like, because they've been doing it, they've have these really strong backgrounds, and we say, well, we'd like to do XYZ, and they're like, yeah, but we could do it so much better if we did, PQRS. We're like, oh my, you're okay. Scrap XYZ.
Yeah.
So there's this symbiotic relationship that we get with our new faculty, and so I don't think I'll ever be in a position to turn a hire down.
Yeah.
That's what's going to keep us moving forward in this department.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so lightning round type questions, as you know, so try not to think too hard about these. Okay, so let's see. So these are meant to be kind of like they could be longer answers, but let's see what you could do with shorter answers.
All right.
Okay, so we talked about your goals for the year. What is, like, if you could only choose one thing to accomplish by the end of this academic year, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Get approval for a math tutoring center.
Awesome. Okay. This one has there's a little hot seat as well. So take it in a humorous spirit too. What concentration needs the most work and why?
Oh wow. Oh wow.
That should have been a hot seat question, but I was going to try to get like a quick answer, like a.
All right, I'm going with applied. All right.
Okay.
I'm going with applied because I think there is okay, applied and stats are becoming more and more alike over time, and in terms of the actual content that they need to cover, and I think applied needs to find its identity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent answer. Wow. What's your vision for data science within the department and kind of beyond?
So I think right now we're working on a data science minor, and the tricky thing here, right, is data science is not a purely mathematical activity, right? It's at the intersection really of math and computer science, at least as I've had it explained to me, right? Like, one of the big issues with data science is it's really hard to get anybody to define it for you, right?
Yes.
A good explanation is hard to find. So if there's going to be data science going forward, I think it is best if math is housing it. My biggest concern is that it turns into a program that exposes people to ideas but doesn't give them any skills.
Right.
And now math absolutely has something like a role in providing skills to somebody in data science, right? Ideally, I think computer science would as well. I mean, we certainly do teach some programming in the math department, and if push comes to shove, we will do that, and we'll do a good job of it.
Sure.
But computer science, they're the content experts when it comes to programming, and it'd be really great for them to be involved in such a thing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see us house it, but I'd really like to have a joint partnership with computer science. Something which I know historically we haven't had a lot of overlap between the two departments because they're in a different college, so it's kind of hard sometimes. But I think there's a lot of room for some interdisciplinary work between the two departments, and I think data science might be a way of bridging the two.
Nice. Okay, any interest in expanding the grad programs offerings?
Well, in terms of like courses, or having another grad program.
Yeah, like offering different degrees from the 3 that we offer right
now.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. So we have 3. We have applied, we have statistics, and we have a teaching grad. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. When I first got here, there was a lot of discussion about having one for pure mathematics.
Yeah.
And so I think at first, without thinking about it too much, I was quite excited about the idea. The issue ultimately is who are going to be the students who take these courses, and that's not clear to me. And also there's some weird stuff, like we already have algebra analysis, combinatorics grad courses for the teaching concentration. And if we were doing pure, say, like, well, you'd expect to have those same courses, right? But those can't be the same courses, right? Presumably, if you're having a master's in pure math, it should be helping somebody prepare to go to a PhD program in pure math. And that's not the mandate for the current, teaching grad program, right? They're not trying to get people into a pure math PhD.
For sure.
So we would definitely have to do some, we have some creative naming of courses. But yeah, and I'm not sure we would have the students to support it. Or at this point, the faculty to support it, right? Like we already have issues staffing all the pure courses all the time. So I think in an ideal world, I would love to be able to teach a graduate course in pure mathematics. I think practically speaking, it's not going to happen, at least during my tenure as chair.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and there's a lot of, being in Southern California, there's so many programs in the area, so there's always that. You would really, the supply and demand is not really favorable.
That's right. And now, do I think we could do a good job with it? Yeah, I do. I mean, we've said, as long as I've been here, we're giving our students a UCLA quality education at CSUF prices.
Yeah.
And, I don't think there's anybody in the pure group who isn't qualified to be teaching master's or PhD level courses. We could, and we're really good teachers in this department. I think we do a heck of a job with it. But yeah, finding, actually getting students in, I think would be problematic, and it would divide our attention quite a bit. Sure. I'm not interested in spending less time focusing on our undergraduates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really like focusing on them. I like that we do all these research projects. And if you had graduate students, well, what are you going to do in pure mathematics, right? It's not like you're going to be doing internships, right? You got to be doing research with them. And that's less time we'd have to spend with our undergraduates. So I kind of like the place we're at right now.
Yeah, great. Okay, so this is a question whose answer might change after a couple of years, but at this point in time, how long do you see yourself serving as chair?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Well, that was a lightning round answer.
Yeah, I mean, people have already brought it up, which I'm like, man, the body isn't even cold yet.
That's right.
Oh, you're going to run a second term, right? I'm like, well, I mean, I just got into this job, right? I think it's better to start from the position of I'm going to do this for 3.5 years. I'm going to get as much done as I can and try to leave the department better off. And, if we get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, maybe there is somebody who would be a really good replacement, but it's not a good time for them to do it. And, there's just not a good way to pass the torch. I could see myself doing another term, but I don't want to plan for that. Rather just imagine myself teaching again, in 2028.
No, that's a very smart and mature way to approach it, because you're going to see a lot in the next 3 years, so that is going to more than anything else inform. And you're right, just like in terms of what's the state of affairs with people who who would be a good fit for the role. Is there anyone just ready to step up and make it easy for you to step out? I mean, to a large degree, I felt that way with you this year. It's like, wow, it's like I think he's ready as he's ever going to be, so having said that, Adam, I'm really excited, to kind of watch safely from the sidelines, and watch you lead the department. I think it's very natural. I think myself and a lot of other people have been expecting this at some point, and so it's pretty exciting, and I'm sure everyone's going to be looking forward to supporting you as well.
I appreciate that. It's funny, at the holiday party, Mai Jin Chen, she showed up, and she was on the committee that hired me.
Yeah.
And I guess I knew this because she told me at the time I was hired. She had told everybody on the committee that I was going to be a department chair one day. So this was when I started the party. It was the first time she found out that I was going to be the chair.
Wow.
And she, I knew it. I told you.
Yep. You nailed it.
Yep. Well, and I've said this a bunch of times. I'll say it again. I've had so many good role models over my career. Since I got here, obviously Stephen was a tremendous chair. Marty only got to do it for a year, but you could tell where his heart was, and then working with you the last 5 years has just been incredible, and I mean, just an amazing learning experience. So I have confidence, even if I don't have competence, because when what would Al do? What would Stephen do? It's really
That's awesome.
I think it'll go okay, because I just try to emulate y'all.
No, I think I mean, I think that's all legit, and thank you for saying all that. But I also know you'll bring kind of that special Adam, kind of thing to the job, and I think the timing's perfect.
The smell, yeah, they already told me about my smell, yeah.
So no, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. It's good stuff.
Looking forward. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview today.
You betcha. It was a lot of fun. Always good to hang out with you too.
I've had so much fun with you over the years. My goodness.